saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, you know what's going on. Today I'm going to be ranking some of the most commonly discussed superpowers, so super strength for example. And I'm ranking them based on how cool they are as a power, because obviously pretty much any superpower would be cool to have, but some are just a lot better than others. I might be doing a part 2 of this video, where instead of ranking the powers that everyone knows about, I rank really mediocre and useless superpowers, like summoning a hot dog whenever you're hungry or something like that. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to comment them down below. Anyways, let's get right into it. We're starting off with what is probably the most discussed superpower there is, flight. This is basically the main superpower. When you think of any superpower, there's a good chance it's going to be flight. Now, there are a lot of factors revolving around flight as a superpower. So for the sake of discussion, I'm going to say you could fly 500 miles per hour max at any altitude as long as you're not in space, and you never get tired no matter how long you're flying. Also, you can control your speed. So say you don't want to go 500 miles per hour. You could go 50 miles per hour, or 10 miles per hour, or you could just levitate in place, as long as you're not going faster than 500 miles per hour. Now with that all out of the way, we gotta talk about weather conditions, which still can affect you. Some parts of the atmosphere are extremely hot, some are extremely cold, there's higher levels of harmful radiation. All these things can really hurt you. We also gotta talk about the possibility of getting struck by lightning, which probably wouldn't happen, but it still could, and also really fast wind speeds that could affect your trajectory and make you lost. Now, you could avoid this by wearing clothes that keep you really warm and block out radiation, and only flying high when the weather's nice. But the real threat that I care about is the people who see you flying. Let's be real for a second here. If the government catches you magically flying without the use of any machines, they're not just gonna let that slide and accept it as fact. They're gonna capture you and study you in a lab. They're gonna try their best to understand how you can fly, even if it means they have to kill you to do it. Also, specifically for people who live in the United States, there could be some guy on the ground who spots you flying and thinks you're a Chinese spy, so he decides to start shooting at you. Remember that Chinese weather balloon from a couple of years ago? That could be you. So, you can only really travel at night, when no one can see you, which I guess gets rid of the radiation factor. You have to wear really bulky clothes that can withstand high speeds in order to stay warm. And you definitely can't bring a lot of luggage, especially not people, unless you want them to fall off mid-flight. I can only really see this being used around your house, like maybe you're just slowly flying to the fridge instead of walking because you're a lazy bum, or you just want to have some fun, or just to fly really long distances by yourself and with barely any luggage, which really isn't that often, but I guess you could skip out on the plane rides. It's a good concept, but it has its flaws. I'll put it in B tier. I will admit though, it would be pretty cool to use when no one else is around.
Yes, I've done steroids.
Here's the deal with super strength. You're 50 times stronger, have 5 times more endurance, and you're 2 times faster. Say, hypothetically, the maximum weight you could deadlift is 100 pounds, but you could only do 1 rep. You could jog at a speed of 8 miles per hour for 20 minutes without taking any breaks, and your sprinting speed is 15 miles per hour. This is all without super strength. With super strength, you can deadlift 5,000 pounds 5 times in a row, you can jog for 100 minutes straight at 16 miles per hour, and your sprinting speed is 30 miles an hour. I'm also going to say you keep the same build as you had before. You're not going to end up looking like the Hulk, but you could still exercise and gain strength or endurance or speed, and it's amplified by whatever the power stats are. So 50 times for strength, 5 times for endurance, 2 times for speed. This does seem like a pretty solid superpower, but keep in mind, you're not immune to injuries or illnesses. If you just let yourself go and become morbidly obese, and you think it's fine because you have all your strength or endurance, think again. You could still get diabetes or have a heart attack. And sure, if you punch a brick wall, it's gonna break the brick wall, but it'll also break your hand. Also, you gotta be really careful, or else you might end up hurting someone or breaking something. Say you go to shake someone's hand. That could end pretty badly if you're not paying attention to how strong your grip is. Say you're playing a nice game of catch, but then you end up accidentally throwing the ball too hard, and it hits someone's car. Yeah, that's gonna end up costing you a lot of money to fix. After a while of having super strength though, I think you get used to it. It would just be the start that's difficult. Once you get the hang of it, you're pretty much guaranteed to become a world famous athlete. You can run marathons like it's nothing, you can pick up cars, and if you're not the fastest person in the world at this point, then that's just kinda sad. Obviously, you can use this to make a lot of money. You spend 5 years being the world's most famous athlete. After that, you retire. You never have to work a day in your life ever again. At this point, I assume you have like $100 million, as long as you were smart and got sponsored by people. With that kind of money, you can basically do whatever. You can live on a tropical island, I don't know, a forest in Canada or something. It doesn't matter. You could have multiple houses. I mean, you're rich, you're famous. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. I think that's a pretty good deal. Now, you do need to be a little cautious while being the world's most famous athlete. Because if you're just some skinny guy lifting 5,000 pounds, people are gonna get suspicious. And the government's gonna bring you to a lab to study. Also, I mean, the risk of hurting people or destroying stuff, that's pretty serious. But once you get the hang of it, you're living the dream. If you had super strength, your life would just be so much better. So, I mean, I really just have to say S tier for this one. I'm gonna say for this one, you can swim as deep as you want. So if you swim to the bottom of the ocean, you're not gonna get crushed by all the pressure. Kind of like the thing with flight, how you could fly however high you want as long as you're not in space, except it's just the opposite. However, this doesn't change the fact that it's still really cold down there. Or really hot, depending on if you're near any underwater volcanoes and stuff like that. Not to mention, it's literally pitch black, so you're gonna need some sort of light source. But if I'm being honest though, none of this really matters, because there's not that many reasons to go to the bottom of the ocean, even if you can breathe underwater. And I would say marine life could be a problem, but usually if you don't bother them, they don't bother you. Now this brings me to another point. You have the power, right? Now what are you gonna do with it? I mean, you could study stuff that's underwater, like animals and stuff. That seems like it could be, like, kind of an interesting job. But, like, what if you don't want that to be your job? You know what I'm saying? This only applies to, like, a small percentage of the population. You could be a magician, but your only trick would be holding your breath for a long time. Yeah, this just sounds really mid. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but, like, is it really all that useful? Especially compared to super strength. I mean, even compared to flight, it's just... it's getting C tier. For this one, I'll say the laser itself is 1 centimeter wide, and it has unlimited range as long as it's not blocked by anything. I'll also say you can control the laser's temperature as long as it's more than or equal to the boiling point of water. And I guess you can control its color too, as long as it's on the visible spectrum. Now, say you want to cut something in half, like a really big rock. If the laser's millions of degrees, you might expect it to just go right through the rock. You know, it's just a clean cut, it's split perfectly in two, but no, that would not happen. I mean, I guess it would cut the rock in half, but it would also melt all the rest of the rock that it didn't vaporize. You'd just be stuck with a puddle of lava. Not to mention, anything behind that rock would probably be melted or vaporized as well. And that's not even the worst part about it. When it comes to laser eyes, no one ever talks about the surrounding area. If a beam of light is that hot, and it's going for that long so you could cut in half a rock, it's gonna heat up the air so much that it would probably turn to plasma. Everything would be on fire. Say you're in a forest, that forest, like, it's gonna catch on fire. It will be destroyed. If you're near any people, they're basically gonna be cooked to death. Their houses are gonna be destroyed. Their windows will melt. Like, in a pretty substantial radius, too. Even if there's no one in that radius, that ball of death, they could still look at the laser, like even the general direction of where the laser is, from like 10 miles away, and they'd still probably go blind. Because you know if something's that hot, it's gonna be extremely bright. From space, I bet this thing would look like an atomic bomb went off. But I guess since it is your power, you won't go blind, you won't get burnt to a crisp, because that's just kind of unfair. However, if you cause a fire and it's all surrounding you and you can't escape, you could still die from that, because that's not like directly you. That's kind of like a different thing, you know what I mean? Either way though, all this just to cut a rock in half? Nah. So what if you decide to make the laser like 3,000 degrees to slowly melt the rock in half, because for whatever reason you really want this rock to be split in two. If sitting there and staring at a rock for 30 minutes sounds fun to you, then go ahead. But even once it is split in half, you're gonna have to separate the two parts so they don't solidify back together. If you don't do it in time and they do solidify back together, you have to sit there for another 30 minutes. So it's not even worth it. The only other thing I could think of that you could do with laser eyes is cook food. Okay, so you're standing there with your lasers at 500 degrees, staring at a pan, waiting for it to get hot so you could put a piece of steak on it. And you have to keep staring at it so it keeps staying hot. The whole time you could have just had the stove on. To be honest, this is less useful than slowly melting that rock in half. At least a big rock that's split into two pieces is cool and interesting. A steak that took you 3 or 4 hours to make is probably unevenly cooked and doesn't even taste good isn't cool. That's just sad. Especially when you could have just turned the stove on and had it done in 10 or 15 minutes. Nah, I'm done talking about this. It's useless. Laser eyes are useless. I'm sorry to all the laser eye fans out there, but it's going in F tier.
Hey, Vsauce, Michael here. But now, I'm not.
Right from the start, I gotta say this. Teleportation is so overpowered. The restrictions are you can travel wherever you want in an instant, with unlimited range, but you have to know where you're going. So that could be you've been there before, you're looking at a picture, just as long as you recognize where you're going in some way. Also, anything that you're carrying gets teleported with you. That could be your clothes, a bag, a traffic cone, anything, but it can't be alive. You can't bring one of your friends, you can't bring your dog, just you. I know, you can only teleport with inanimate objects, but that really doesn't even matter. Say you're traveling long distances. The people who are going with you can just take a plane, or any other form of transportation. And it's not like you're inconveniencing them by teleporting, you're just making it more convenient for yourself. What matters more to me, though, is short distance travel. Convenience. You'll rarely have to get into cars. If you're hungry, you could just teleport to the fridge and take some food. And if you're someplace you don't want to be, like a boring party, you could just walk into the bathroom and disappear. Also, I'm not saying you should do this, but you could just teleport to the store and take some food. You could even teleport to the bank and take some money. Whatever you're doing though, just remember to be discreet about it. If you just spawn in the middle of the street, you might draw unwanted attention to yourself. If you're going someplace outside your house, just remember to teleport into a bathroom or behind the building. As long as there's no one who's gonna see you. You might not be as rich and famous as you'd be if you had super strength, but your life would definitely be a lot more convenient. So I'll give it S tier as well.
Fish!
You can transform into literally anything. It could be a mosquito. It could be an entire galaxy. It does not matter as long as you can imagine it. But similar to most of the other superpowers, there are downsides. Different things experience the world differently. If you turn into a fly, sure, you'll be able to fly, but also your vision's gonna be all weird. If you turn into a chair, well, chairs don't feel anything at all. They can't see, they can't hear, they can't smell, they can't taste, and neither will you, if you're a chair. But to keep things fair, I'll say that no matter what you change into, you still have the same mental capacity. You still think the same as you did as a human. However, there still is one more thing. If you change into something like a glass, and someone drops you and you shatter all over the floor, you're dead. There's no turning back into a human, that's it, you're just done, you're in pieces. The same goes for smaller things too, like if someone dropped you on the floor and instead of shattering everywhere, you just got a crack. That would probably translate to something like a broken leg once you change back to your normal self. I would really just advise not turning into something so fragile. If you wanted to fly, for example, instead of turning into a bug, you should turn into something more strong, like a hawk or an eagle. Even still, though, I think that it's really just a dumb power. If you wanted to fly, then instead of turning into a bird, you could have just chose flying. And if you wanted to breathe underwater, then instead of turning into a fish, you could have just chose water breathing. I see it as being more of a novelty rather than a superpower. Is it gonna help you all that much? Nah. Is it kinda cool? Sure. You know, I was originally gonna rank shapeshifting in D tier, but then it hit me. Identity fraud. You can change into whoever you want. All the clips before this, I wasn't even thinking about that. The whole time I was thinking shapeshifting is trash, it's useless, but now I think it's pretty good. You can turn into a politician and lie to the public. You can manipulate people into doing what you want. You can commit a crime and change identities, and no one will ever know that it was you. This isn't a D tier superpower. As a matter of fact, I'm tempted to rank it in S tier. However, it isn't the best of the best. So I guess I'll compromise and say A tier. It's still pretty good. Before I actually end off today's video here, I do have a quick announcement for you guys. Remember in the beginning of the video when I said I might be doing a part 2 of this, where I rank really mediocre superpowers that you guys suggest? Well, don't worry, that's still probably going to happen as long as I get enough submissions. But what's also going to be happening is I'm going to be doing parts 2 and 3 of this video where I rank normal superpowers. You see, I made a Google Doc with a list of 17 superpowers and all their stats and information, and once it took me 2 minutes and 40 seconds just to cover flight, I realized that I couldn't include all 17 in one video, or else it would be like an hour long. So if you are interested in watching the rest of this series, make sure to subscribe and join the Discord using the link in my channel's description so you can stay updated. I'll also put all of these videos into a playlist called, like, Ranking Superpowers or something like that. Anyways, that's all I really have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the series. With that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.